Hi, Jeff.
Hey, Meesha.
Welcome back to episode 35B of the North Atlanta Real Estate Podcast with your amazing host, Meesha Rawal.
And Jeff Aughey.
And the reason I said it's a follow-up episode is because we were not able to finish off the previous episode in the time duration that we thought we would. So today we're going to answer the question, how do you evaluate an older home versus a newer build?
Okay, yeah. So that's actually a great topic because it comes up a lot, right? You get people and they're like, I want a new home. Most people say that until you start seeing that new home comes at a higher cost and maybe in the location you don't want, the lot size, all these things. So then you start trying to evaluate, okay, what am I willing to give up? Do I really want that newer home? And then what does that mean? And so it's an important topic, right?
Yeah, and I feel like for every person, an older home means completely different things. For some people, an older home means something built in the 1970s and 80s. But if you talk to some buyers, they're like, no, anything built before 2010 is an older house.
That's a good point.
And because then, I think right around the 15-year mark, a lot of components need to be looked at.
Yep, that's absolutely true. I mean, we were just talking before this podcast started that, you know, if you compare a home built in maybe 2010 compared to one built in the year 2000, you're probably going to have more upcoming work needed on that home built in 2010. You could need your roof, your HVACs are getting old, your water heater's getting old, whereas all of those items probably are either have been done or close to being done if the home was built in the year 2000. So.
Absolutely. So you would see a lot of houses that were built in 2009, 2010, 2011 come on the market because the homeowners don't want to replace the roof or worry about the extra cost or the effort required to replace these items.
Yeah.
And when it comes to a newer house, for a lot of people, a newer build is something built 3 years ago. And for some people, a newer build is something where no one's ever lived in before. So it's a brand new construction is a newer build.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point.
So the maintenance, I think, is the biggest issue when it comes to buying an older house because people are like, well, I don't know. How old is the roof? How long will it last? How is the HVAC? And so that's the maintenance curve because it's the most useful way to compare an older house to a newer house.
Yeah, I think so. And, you know, it's one of those things, it's easy for a home buyer, especially a new home buyer that's maybe not used to the process of just being scared and saying, well, I don't want an older home. But as we talked about, you could just had a home that has been updated with the systems and the roof. And oftentimes, well, I would say oftentimes, but you certainly can have where the quality of the systems that are put in are far higher quality than what the builder is putting in. Sometimes you get that builder grade equipment that's just kind of junky, right? I mean, it is not top of the line stuff. And so if you've had a homeowner that's really maintained the home properly and has recently replaced these systems with higher quality components, you could have an older home that's in actually quite solid condition.
That's actually a great point because there was this one house that where we had the HVAC replaced by the seller and it was replaced by a Train, which is probably the best in its kind HVAC system versus some builders are not using Train or Carrier HVAC units. And whether it's a newer house or an older home, your inspector is going to be your best friend because what we have learned over years of real estate is that no matter how well prepared you are with a new construction, you just don't know. There are certain components that could be failing, that have failed during the home building process. And so if you are at a stage where you are still at a pre-drywall inspection, please go ahead, get the pre-drywall, and then do a new construction inspection.
To make sure I'm hearing this right, and so folks are getting this, you're saying that it's really important to inspect that new home as well.
Yeah, we've seen houses where the buyer walked in, started living in the house, and there was water that was spouting from their slab.
Wow.
On the main level. So I think the slab was not poured properly. The concrete, the foundation was not poured properly. This is like within a month of living in the house. And then there was this other new construction incoming again, right next to the Costco incoming, where the roof was not installed properly by the subcontractors because we have to understand that the builders are not building the houses themselves. They subcontract, who also in turn may subcontract little parts of the work.
No, that's absolutely true because, you know, the builder, the one that is, you know, that you might be interfacing with as the home is being put up, they don't go up on the roof after it's been put on and inspected. And so they're just basically hoping that it was done right. And so that is why you do need to send up your own inspector to make sure it's done properly, because if you find that problem now, then the builder's going to have to fix it. And the builders will fix real problems. And so then it's on their dime. But if you wait, and especially if you're past your year home warranty walk for your new home, if you have a roof problem after that, guess what? It's your problem, generally speaking.
Yeah, and typically when we see an issue like water intrusion or the grading not being right or things like roof repairs, I typically ask my buyers to dig in their heels and not close until the work is remedied, because once the house closes, it's very hard to find the building contractor.
So true.
So that would be my public service announcement.
No, that's a good announcement. That is so true.
Yeah. So let's look at the next part of why some people would choose a newer house versus an older house is location and lifestyle filters, Jeff.
The reality is, especially around here, your older homes are obviously in established neighborhoods in areas that are generally built out. When we're talking about Alpharetta and Johns Creek and most of Milton, certainly Roswell, all these areas are 98% built out. You just have some small infill neighborhoods that come on right now, very expensive. Land costs are so high that what you don't get in any of these new neighborhoods are, you don't get swim tennis. That's like an out. All the lot sizes are small and like that. And so what people start to have to balance is, okay, with a new home, I get these open floor plans, and then everything is built to today's style. You get the quartz and the light colors and all the materials. Your bathrooms look great. So you now have to do trade-offs for that compared to the older homes that are built in the area, right?
And Hawthorne is a good example. That's a new construction by Toll Brothers, which is right off of Kimball. And the houses were selling for 1.4, 1.6, 1.7, and it's right next to Glen Abbey, which has an amazing swim tennis, amazing clubhouse, gorgeous trees all around. So you have to be like, okay, I would rather give up that lifestyle and be in a newer house, which is right next to Glen Abbey, with no swim, no tennis, but you get a newer house.
And not only that, I mean, I think it's also fair to say in comparison there too, you probably would get for the same price if you were in Glen Abbey, you probably get a home with a finished basement as well, right? And also probably in pretty good condition if you're up in that price range.
Yeah, and much larger lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is then, it comes down to what does a particular person want, because some people, it might be very important, like we talked about earlier, that they want that peace of mind where they're not going to have any problems with their house. And maybe they just want it to look fresh and look new. And I don't know if you've had a buyer, I'm sure you have, where they just don't want to be in a house that somebody else lived in, right?
Yeah. And some people don't realize until they see it that you can't renovate a neighborhood feel.
Yeah, that's true. It reminds me of a family that I was working with who was relocating. And they told me when we were talking on the phone, especially getting started, they only wanted new construction. Because that's just what they thought they wanted, right? They didn't want projects, and that was like zeroed in. Well, so we looked at new communities, and of course they were a little further out, but not really in the area. They were like, wow, you have to be far out here to get this house. And I said, well, this is where they're building the new homes in this price range. And so, they loved the layouts and such, and they didn't, they didn't love the lot size though, and everything looked the same, a cookie cutter, right? We've all heard that. And so then what I did is I brought them a little closer in, that was farther out in Cumming, and brought them back into sort of Alpharetta and Johns Creek area. Yeah, the whole homes were older, but they liked the mature look of the lots. The lot sizes were larger. You got trees, everything's finished. And they didn't all look cookie cutter. And so it ended up, even though they thought they wanted one thing new, they ended up buying closer in with an older home. We found one that had a lot of the systems replaced, and they love it. And they're so glad they didn't make a choice to get the newer home farther out.
Yeah, so and these days, if you're looking for, like I mentioned, houses over here in Hawthorne, and even the bridges on Webbridge Road, those are selling for $4 million.
Oh, I know. That's crazy, right? I think they're already sold out.
They're sold out.
That's crazy.
You could buy two amazing houses, one in Glen Abbey and one in Windward, $1.5 million each, and have two luxurious houses for the price of one house. Also, when it comes to new construction, just a little reality check that the new construction contract favors the builders, and the upgrades add up fast, and the timelines can shift. So you can be given a certain date, for the execution of the house, and it'll be completed. But when it comes to the weather, no one can predict the weather, and that could delay construction and your closing date.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that happened when we bought ours. We were delayed.
This house,
was like over
the one that you
the one we're in
are
right now. Yeah, that our studio is in, right? The one we're in right now. Yeah, no, we were supposed to move in, and it was I think it was about 6 weeks late, and we were living in an extended stay, hotel or something right there on State Bridge Road, and we were just had to stay longer.
Because you had sold your other house?
We sold our other house, yeah. We sold our other house, so we were just kind of nomads for a few months, and and so that definitely can happen.
And these days, when you go in with a contract, and it could say the house price is starting at 1.5 million, and then when you go in, you realize is that you haven't added the lot premium, which is a must these days. All builders are charging.
Almost, it's kind of like they say it's a premium, but I mean, it's a given that there's going to be one, right? And it's not built into the price sheet that you get.
Yeah, which is surprising because you're like, well, you have to build a house. You need a lot for that. You would think that it's already priced in. But unfortunately, there is a lot premium, which could change based on the location, the premium lots versus lots that nobody else wants. So just keep an eye out on what lots are being sold at a sale, because that could mean that there is something. It could mean, it may not be true, that there's something faulty with that particular lot.
Why don't you tell me, you told me this just a moment ago too, before we started recording. There is a situation you heard about where now some of the builders might be forcing you to do certain upgrades that aren't necessarily reflected in their base price level.
Yeah.
What was that
So
you were hearing?
One of my buyers who came to, we were looking at some houses. He said one of the reasons why he did not buy in Cross Creek in Cumming, this is a Toll Brothers construction, is because they said that the price was 1.3 million, but then you add the lot premium. And then there is something like a mandatory $300,000 upgrade that they were being forced to do to the house. So, and you could not back out of it because that included your carpets, your light fixtures. So even though the builder was giving it to you and you were choosing it, you had to add it on top of the price. And a lot of people, when they go in thinking that the house is going to cost them 1.55 maybe, and it cost them 1.8 million, they're like, we're totally priced out. So, and once you sign the contract, like we said, the contract favors the builder. You have to follow through. So you will have to go in and choose your light fixtures, but at the end of the day, you are the one who is footing the bill.
Yeah, I mean, it's so true. So it pays to really, I guess, get in and understand what that contract's going to look like before you get too far into this process, right?
Yeah, and I think one of the reasoning that the builders are giving is because of cohesiveness. Because they're like, well, all other houses in this subdivision have the $300,000 upgrade. You can go above 300 and add value to the subdivision, but you can't go below it.
Yeah, because of course the builder is always worried about the next house that he's selling, and he wants to keep bumping that price up, and so he doesn't want any. I'm sure the kind of these ones that come in low, because I've had people too where I'll just take it as is and take it the lowest price possible. I've had that as well.
Yeah, not anymore.
Not
with
anymore.
Some builders, yeah.
The good old days.
Yeah. So as to wrap up this particular, 35B episode, what we did was we talked about older versus newer and how the maintenance curve and lifestyle fit.
Yeah, and also the importance of making sure you get your inspections if you're buying a new build, not just for the resale, but like you said, you've got to have your pre-drywall if you can and your final inspection, and then also make sure you're reading a builder's contract and know that those upgrades add up fast. And if you're evaluating against the the older resales, just know that there's pluses and minuses with each, and you can get a beautiful home in an established neighborhood a little closer in for the square footage. So yeah, it's pluses and minuses for both, and it's where a good realtor can help their clients sort of weave and figure out what's the right sweet spot for them.
Yes, and sometimes when you see a house which is advertised as better than new,
yeah,
there is a possibility it is better than new. So definitely take advantage of that. And this is Meesha Rawal
and Jeff Aughey
signing off. Stay smart, stay informed, and stay tuned.
Bye for now.
Bye.